Welcome back to Blumira Briefings, your weekly download of the top headlines and trends for your security practice. We've got 3 stories this week. CISA added another Patch This Now Cisco vulnerability to the pile. Fortinet patched critical bugs in the appliance built to catch critical bugs. And a new Android Trojan called Rokarolla is draining bank apps by hijacking the phone's accessibility tools. To the news! CISA added 2 flaws to its Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog this week. One's an arbitrary file write bug in Cisco's Catalyst SD-WAN manager, and then the other's a symlink mishandling in the LiteSpeed cPanel plugin that allows low-permission users to exploit it. And exploit it they have. Both are under active attack right now. These vulnerabilities are affecting tech that sits deep within an org's infrastructure, so you don't want to sleep on it. Matt, if we look past the individual vulnerabilities, is there a common theme in attacker behavior that you see in this week's announcements?
One thing that jumped out to me about these additions to the CISA KEV catalog is that neither vulnerability targets what most organizations consider to be a traditional endpoint. We're talking about a Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN management platform, and we're talking about a LiteSpeed host and control plugin. In other words, we're talking about infrastructure and we're talking about administrative tooling. Now that's important because nowadays attackers are becoming way less interested in just trying to compromise every device in an environment. They're looking for systems that give them leverage over everything else. For MSPs, that's especially concerning. A vulnerable management platform, a network device, or hosting administration tool could become a force multiplier for an attacker. Instead of compromising one user, they may gain vulnerability into multiple client environments, administrative workflows, and even critical network traffic. And let's be real. This is something that we have seen happen in the MSP space at least once over the past, 2 or 3 years. The lesson here is that infrastructure devices and management interfaces need to be treated with the same exact urgency as servers and endpoints. Too many organizations have mature endpoint patching and processes, but they still view switches, management consoles, firewalls, and hosting platforms as set-it-and-forget-it technology. Now, I'm going to take a moment to make an admission because there was a time when I thought that way. But that was 25 years ago. That was this version of Matt in a data center. Can't do that anymore. If you're an MSP or a small business, now is time to review your inventory of network appliances, management platforms, and administrative plugins. Make sure that they're included in your vulnerability management program. Verify that you've subscribed to vendor security advisories, PSIRTs and whatnot. And confirm that those systems are being monitored for any kind of unusual activity, particularly administrative activity. Another takeaway from this is the value of CISA's Known Exploited Vulnerabilities, KEV, catalog itself. Now, when a vulnerability lands in that list, the conversation should shift from should we patch to how quickly can we patch. The existence of active exploitation means that attackers are already demonstrating a working path to compromise. It's not proof of concept, it's actually happening out there. Now, the bottom line of this is simple. Attackers continue to target infrastructure that connects, manages, and administers everything else. If you're only focused on endpoints, there's a good chance you're watching the front door while, someone's trying to use the keys to get into the building's control room.
Speaking of being betrayed by tools that we're meant to trust, Fortinet has patched 3 critical vulnerabilities in FortiSandbox, its appliance for detonating and analyzing suspicious files. These are operating system command injection flaws, so they craft requests to the admin interface, and then that allows an unauthenticated attacker to run commands on the appliance without having a login or requiring user interaction. Researchers are reporting active exploitation in the wild, and that's no bueno because FortiSandbox plugs into firewalls, mail gateways, endpoint tools, so, a compromise there hits a lot of connected systems. Farouk, these vulns are certainly serious, but what concerns you most when attackers target systems that sit in this kind of highly trusted position inside the network?
Thanks, Zoe. Well, folks, when you hear about yet another Fortinet vulnerability, it's really easy to focus on the CVE score or the patch itself, but what really stands out here is where these vulnerabilities are located. FortiSandbox is located in a very trusted position in the environment. It's connected to email security systems, endpoint tools, firewalls, and has visibility across multiple client environments in the MSP managed system. So when an appliance like that is exploited, the concern isn't just the appliance itself, but the access and visibility that appliance has across the entire environment. Now, according to reports, attackers are exploiting vulnerabilities that allow remote command execution through the administrative interface. What that means in practical terms is that the attackers can gain control of the entire appliance and then use that as a foothold to move laterally across the environment. Now, what's particularly interesting is that this fits a pattern that we keep seeing across the industry. Threat actors keep targeting perimeter security devices, VPN appliances. Why? Well, these platforms are incredibly valuable. They sit at a critical trust boundary in the network. And I think there's a broader lesson here. Over the last decade, organizations have moved many of their services to the cloud, but the stuff that remains on-prem isn't any less important. In some cases, it's even more critical because they serve as gateways between users, applications, and the data that those users need to access. That's why patching remains critically important, but it's only part of the conversation. We also need to think about reducing implicit trust, limiting admin exposure, monitoring for unusual activity, and really designing environments where compromise of one device doesn't result in the compromise of the entire environment and everything behind it. For MSPs, this is another reminder to review internet-facing applications, validate patch levels, and evaluate whether security control policies are creating unnecessary concentrations of trust. Because when attackers target these systems, they're often looking for much more than just one appliance or one system. They're really looking for a path to everything that connects to it. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe for the Fortinet P-Cert feeds to stay on top of future vulnerabilities and patches.
And now, shifting from security tech getting out of pocket to the tech that's in your pocket, researchers are tracking a new Android banking Trojan called Rokarolla that targets more than 200 banking, finance, and crypto wallet apps. It's a tale as old as time and a hack as old as rhyme. You fish the target, you dupe them into granting Android's accessibility permissions. From there, it reads the screen, it steals login credentials, and intercepts text messages that the banks are using for two-factor, so it can clear that second step all on its own. This one has some pretty nasty evasion tactics, though. It blocks incoming calls from financial institutions, it intercepts critical one-time SMS passcodes, and it silences all device audio and vibrations while it works. So, what do you think about this one, Zoe? Hey, Zoe, thanks for asking. I think this one's interesting because it can be really easy to dismiss phishing-based attacks as other people problems for those easily tricked and security-naive users who are obviously less refined than we are. So, story time. Once upon a time, I ran a club night for about a decade. I know I don't look like that. I could be that old. But a few weeks after the first startup that I worked at got acquired and then the options finally paid out, I got a notification from my bank while I was setting up about 15 minutes before the club's doors opened. It was a password reset request, so of course, immediately I pull my phone out, I start pulling up the banking app. While I'm doing that, my phone rings, and the helpful bank fraud team helpfully says that they've detected suspicious activity and they blocked the attempt, but now they need to help me secure my account, and so to get started on that, they would verify me by sending me a passcode. Right then, I get the SMS passcode. It is now less than 5 minutes to doors. I am still trying to set up. I am frazzled, to understate it. My spidey sense kicked in just in time, and I hung up to call the bank myself. But if I'd been 5% more tired, that probably would have caught me. Despite keeping my social media profiles locked down, despite literally at that point doing this for nearly a decade, fear plus panic plus split attention plus pressure nearly equaled me getting owned. And that attempt wasn't nearly as sophisticated as this one. My, as usual, long-winded point here is fear and greed and unguarded curiosity are emotional attack vectors, but confidence can be too. We can think that we're more evolved and savvy, but at the end of the day, we are also just animals fighting for control of the meat suit with our lizard brains. So have some empathy for your users because, you might be the user that pulls the short straw someday. Back to you, Zoe. That's Probably enough out of me for 1 week, so we'll keep this end up short. 2 on the must-patch list, 1 appliance that needed protecting from itself, and don't underestimate that phone in your pocket because it might just be a hungry Trojan happy to see your financial information. Until next time, stay safe out there.